It's mailbag time here on Philadelphia Eagles Now. My name is Chase Sr. You've got questions. I've got answers. Always enjoy opening up the floor and taking all of the questions from our loyal subscribers and our real ones here on the show, talking all things Eagles, because that is what we do every single day, year-round, right here on the program. And let's get started with our guy, Cool Rains, diehard Eagles fan, tuned in from Australia, with Landon Dickerson and Elaine Johnson coming back. Do we still draft offensive linemen early, and do they go offensive line in the first round? So that's a good question, Cool Rains. I think it's obviously huge for this Eagles team looking ahead to 2026 that two players who are two of the best players at their position when playing well and healthy are going to come back when the Eagles are ushering in a new offensive coordinator who's never called plays before. He's very inexperienced as a coach. This will be his third year coaching. He was playing as recently as 2023. Chris Cooper is the new offensive line coach. And this offensive scheme is completely different from what the Eagles have been doing under Nick Sirianni. So they're going from a Nick Sirianni, Frank Reich offense to this Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur offense. And so the offensive line philosophy is going to change a little bit. And if the Eagles were to be without Lane Johnson, if he would have retired, Landon Dickerson, if he would have retired at 27 years old, a lot of the early draft compensation and draft picks would be devoted to offensive linemen. Some of the money spent in free agency could be used toward offensive linemen. And it just would have been a huge unknown for this Eagles team going into next year. Now, there are still unknowns with Landon and Lane. What are they going to look like from a physical standpoint? Hopefully, with the Eagles getting bounced in the wild card round and the Eagles having an extended offseason, they are healthy. Because when they are healthy, they're two of the top players in football at guard and at tackle. Now, going back to your question, Cool Rains, do I expect the Eagles to draft an offensive line piece early? I do, because Howie Roseman really likes to invest in the trenches. Is it going to be in the first round? I think the only player over the last 11 years to get drafted in the first round along the offensive line by Howie Roseman is Andre Dillard. But Cam Jurgens, second-round pick, Landon Dickerson, second-round pick, Tyler Steen, third-round pick. So in the first three rounds, I do expect the Eagles to address offensive line. At some point, too, you got to find Lane Johnson's future replacement, and you're not going to be able to find that in free agency. Why? Because teams who have even solid offensive linemen are locking those players down most of the time because they're so important to the offense. Andrew Nathan, Chase, the Eagles should re-sign Nakobe Dean. We can't let another homegrown linebacker leave this franchise like Edwards and Hicks. Re-sign Nakobe, let Campbell sit behind Bond, trade Bond after the 2026 season. Okay, so a couple things to unpack here. Nakobe Dean played really well for the Eagles in 2025. When he started to get more snaps in that Minnesota game onward, I thought it made this defense a lot better. I thought Vic Fangio did a really good job of utilizing Nakobe Dean. Of course, he's always been good at stopping the run because he's such a smart football player who can read, react, and diagnose plays, shoot the gaps, and make disruptive plays against the run game. He can hold up in coverage as well because he's a really good athlete. But what Vic did in 2025 with Nakobe Dean, more so than what he did with Dean in 2024, use him as a blitzer. And Nakobe Dean was so dynamic as a blitzer. Here's the thing. You drafted Jahad Campbell in the first round. You've got him under team control for a total of 5 years if you exercise the fifth-year option. So now that he's played his rookie year, that's 4 more years. Jahad Campbell's a really good player. I think this Eagles defense could stand to get longer, leaner, athletic, and faster on defense, and more affordable. And so Jahad Campbell, you used a first-round pick on him. He's going to cost pennies compared to what Nakobe Dean is going to get. Zach Bond is still a really good player, although some of the lateral quickness escaped him a little bit in 2025. That's a little bit of a concern. But let me also throw this name out there. I think Jeremiah Trotter Jr. can be a really good player in this league. And I think that he could do a lot of the same things that Nakobe Dean can do. And I think that Nakobe Dean could get paid like $10 to $15 million per year. So if he gets offered that, I don't think the Eagles are going to be able to bring him back, nor do they want to bring him back at that price tag, knowing they have 2 young players waiting in the wings who are good in Jahad Campbell and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. And look for Christian Parker to bring in Nakobe Dean to the Dallas Cowboys potentially because they need backers. They're switching to a 3-4. Nakobe knows the scheme, and they need to change that defensive culture with the Dallas Cowboys. Carol Hosey, what are your thoughts on who is out there for our third wide receiver spot? Honestly, I would address this in the NFL draft. Now, a lot of it comes down to what the Eagles do with A.J. Brown. People get so butthurt when I talk about him, but he's one of the biggest storylines across the entire NFL. My job is to talk about the biggest stories around the Eagles. I don't think the Eagles are going to trade A.J. I don't want the Eagles to trade A.J. It's one of the top wide receivers in football, and he's arguably the best wide receiver in franchise history. The Eagles are still in the Super Bowl window. Trading A.J. Brown does not help the Eagles get closer toward having another parade down Broad Street, ending on the Art Museum steps. So let's say that the Eagles bring A.J. Brown back. So with this team, it's also cap-wise very difficult to trade him away. You've got A.J., you've got Devontae Smith. Let Jahan Dotson go. Just an okay player. But I think he wants to go somewhere else where he can have ample opportunities to actually make an impact. Can Darius Cooper rise up to wide receiver 3? You know a player who the Eagles really missed last year? Johnny Wilson, especially as a run blocker with that tush push. Does he become your wide receiver 4? It's doable, but it's a little bit of a risk. So I would like the Eagles to draft a young wide receiver who they can develop, who's got a lot of talent in a draft that is rich and deep at the wide receiver spot. Then you draft that player. You don't need to rush into playing him right away if he's not ready. You can take your time developing him. If that player is ready and he's really good, that player becomes your wide receiver 3. I'll also say that Sean Mannion's offense does a better job of creating opportunities for more wide receivers with the route concepts, the route designs, the play designs. And so under Sirianni, we haven't really seen wide receiver 3s make much of an impact, right? Zach Pascal was more of like a gritty guy in 2022. Olamide Zaccheaus didn't do much for the Eagles in 2023. In 2024, they traded for Jahan Dotson. In the playoffs, he was good. Regular season barely did anything. And in 2025, not much usage for the wide receiver 3 spot. It's different, though, with this new scheme. So I do think it becomes a little bit more of a priority. Peter Thurman, what's up, my man? Always repping the show. Would you draft a tight end if that's the best player on the board? Would I do it in the first round? It depends on who's there. I mean, if Kenyon Sadiq is there, I know he's shorter, but I think he's really dynamic, and I think he's an excellent athlete. Now, a lot of these draft conversations are going to alter just a little bit with what happens at the NFL Combine with how these players test. Kenyon Sadiq is 6'2", a little bit short for a tight end. If he runs 4.4, though, what a weapon he could be. Is he an elite blocker? Not elite, but good enough. And so if he's there at number 23 and he's BPA, best player available, it'd be hard to pass on him. But this is also a draft that is very deep at tight end. So you could find a really good tight end, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, maybe even in the 5th round. Currently rebranding. What about Kyle Pitts? Is he open? He is a free agent. He's only 25 years old, even though it feels as though he's been in the league for a very long time. He's from the Philadelphia area. When he played his college football at Florida, when he was coming out, I thought he was a can't-miss prospect. He was one of my favorite players in that draft because he was such a freak at Florida. His play with the Falcons has been up and down. He had a good rookie year. The next 2 seasons weren't great. Started to get it together a little bit the last 2 seasons. He is so gifted. The issue with Kyle Pitts, is he a great weapon? Yeah. Is he a great athlete? Yeah. Does he run well? For sure. He's not a blocker at all. He's more of that wide receiver 3. Now, he's tall. He's lanky. He can go up and get it. He can create a lot of mismatches, but he just doesn't really block. So if you were to sign Kyle Pitts, bye-bye Dallas Goedert. You're not going to pay 2 tight ends that much money. Then what do? You don't really have a tight end who can block. So a little bit of a risk there. If the Eagles do sign a tight end in free agency, I think Isaiah Likely is a better player. I think he's going to continue to blossom. I think he's going to be cheaper than Pitts. He's a really good athlete. He's an explosive athlete. He's bigger, and he's a better blocker. Anthony Byers. Would you rather have Bradley Chubb and Denzel Ward or Jalen Phillips? Ooh, that's a good question. I like that. Bradley Chubb, older, has played under Vic Fangio with the Broncos and Dolphins. When healthy, he's been a very productive player. He's 28, 29. Denzel Ward is 29. But then you have Jalen Phillips, who's going to be pretty expensive as an individual player compared to having two. Jalen Phillips was incredible for the Eagles. He had more than 40 pressures in 8 games. And he's just an excellent scheme fit for Vic Fangio. He's also really good against the run. But with Phillips, I think he's going to demand $20+ million per season. How he does like investing into pass rushers, but he's got a checkered injury history. Medically retired in college, and then in the NFL, torn ACL and torn Achilles. But you think about how well he played for the Eagles. It's tough to pass up. I might go Phillips over Chubb and Ward, but that's a good question that a lot of people can debate down in the comment section right now. You know what's not debatable? How awesome our Philly drinking team shirts are. We launched these so that you can get geared up for St. Patrick's Day, rep Philadelphia football, but also rep the show and look good when you're bar hopping for St. Patrick's Day, or if you're just chilling at the crib with a nice pint of Guinness. St. Patrick's Day merchandise available now. The shirts are comfortable. The design is awesome, and they're very affordable. So get yours now, chatsports.com/EaglesGreen. This is a shirt that you can wear every single year on St. Patrick's Day. Plus, the Eagles rock Kelly green. So become a member of the Philly drinking team right now. NFL Simverse. Maxx Crosby. Period. A.J. Brown is close, but I don't want to trade him. Don't re-sign Jalen Phillips. Trade for Maxx Crosby. Trade Nolan Smith or Jalix Hunt to be that new starter at edge for us. So I love Maxx Crosby as a player. I love the way that Maxx Crosby plays the game of football. Since coming into the NFL, he's been one of the most productive pass rushers in the game. He's excellent at getting after the quarterback. He's elite at stopping the run as well. His TFL numbers have been awesome throughout his career. He plays the game the right way. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He plays with a lot of toughness, a lot of emotion, a lot of swagger. And he would be a perfect player for this Eagles team and the perfect Philadelphia Eagle. But trading for Maxx Crosby does come with some concerns. I know that the asking price right now is 2 first-round picks. No chance I'm giving up 2 first-round picks for Maxx Crosby. Now, 1, I'd think about it. But here's the thing. He's in his late 20s. He's had some knee issues. And the cap hit is one of the top 5 highest cap hits in the NFL. So you'd have to give up a lot. You'd have to pay him a lot. And what are you trading away? Are you trading away Nolan Smith, who wouldn't cost nearly as much as Maxx Crosby? Would you trade away a Jalix Hunt? Well, Jalix and Nolan have really developed for this Eagles team. And are they elite pass rushers? No, but they're very good. And you could probably get them at somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 million per year, whereas Crosby's cap hit is like $35, $36 million. So we'll interview Howie Roseman next week at the NFL Combine. He's going to be asked about this. And he's not going to be able to talk about Maxx Crosby specifically, but we'll be able to gauge his interest in making a move like this because last year we asked him about Myles Garrett, and he did say, we'll do anything to improve our football team. So Howie's always hunting, trying to improve the roster. Crank Show legend, cranking it here on the show. How do you feel about maybe trying to bring in Romeo Doubs? I like Romeo Doubs a lot. Of course, he played for the Green Bay Packers and has played under Sean Mannion. He would know this offense. He would be an excellent wide receiver 3. He does primarily play on the outside, but I actually think that could be advantageous for the Eagles because then you could have A.J. Brown, Romeo Doubs on the outside. Can you imagine the mismatches that Devontae Smith can cause in the slot? I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba won Offensive Player of the Year and led the NFL in receiving, and he was a nightmarish matchup for defenses out of the slot. Devontae Smith is just as talented, if not more talented, than Romeo Doubs. I've been saying this for months at this point, and I'm glad other people are taking notice of this. Now, Doubs has never surpassed 724 yards in his career, but he's got good size, 6'2", well over 200 pounds. He runs in the 4.4s. He's a really good route runner. He can make explosive plays downfield, and him knowing the scheme, I think would be very beneficial. So it's a lighter wide receiver market in free agency that could elevate the price tag potentially for Romeo Doubs. So we got to keep our eyes on that. Trey Losado, what are your early NFC, AFC predictions this upcoming season? Hashtag go Birds. In the AFC, if Bo Nix can stay healthy, I think the Denver Broncos are a good choice. The Los Angeles Chargers, if Justin Herbert doesn't piss down his leg in the playoffs, but I like Mike McDaniel being the offensive coordinator there. If CJ Stroud can just play good, that Texans team is extremely scary. You got to throw the New England Patriots in there, but they got to make improvements along the offensive line. And I would cut Stephon Diggs to save some money there. If I'm New England, I think he's got a $20 million cap hit, and I think they need to get better at wide receiver. So those are some teams in the AFC. You got to throw in Jacksonville. You have to look at Buffalo, Kansas City, of course, with Patrick Mahomes coming back whenever he does come back, and then Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Like Declan Doyle, the new OC there. I know he's young, but he comes from the Ben Johnson tree. I'm intrigued to see what he can do, and I like Jesse Minter, the head coaching hiring there. In the NFC, Eagles are going to be in play. Seattle, the Rams, the 49ers, the Packers. Did the Cowboys get better on defense? If they do with Christian Parker, that offense is pretty scary if they retain George Pickens. So Chicago, another intriguing team there. Both conferences are very, very deep, which is a good thing for the NFL. All right, good mailbag right there. Who is one player the Eagles should target this upcoming offseason? Some might say Maxx Crosby. Others might say Romeo Doubs. Let me know.